Life isn't fair. It just isn't. You do everything right and you still get crushed. It hurts. It makes you want to scream at the empty sky and demand answers. Why me? But that question is a trap. The Stoic philosophers understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome, yet he buried almost all of his children. He didn't ask the universe for fairness. He looked at the cruelty of the world and found a way to stand firm. The Stoics never promised a gentle life. Seneca wrote about this from absolute exile, stripped of his wealth, his home, his dignity, and he realized the storm is just weather. It doesn't care about your plans, so why let it break you? Epictetus lived as a crippled slave, beaten, forgotten, but he was freer than the men who held his chains because he accepted a brutal truth. The world owes us nothing, absolutely nothing. The Stoics looked into the abyss of life's unfairness, and they didn't blink. They found a quiet, unshakable peace right in the middle of the fire. You play by the rules, you put in the work, and the house still takes your chips. Unfairness isn't a glitch in the system. It is the system. The Stoics, those ancient minds who walked the marble streets of Rome, knew this deep in their bones. They saw the world burning, empire stalling. Plagues, exile, but they didn't break. Why? Because of one simple, brutal truth. They called it the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, a man born in chains, laid it out plain. He said there are things we control and things we do not. That's it. That is the whole secret. We control our thoughts, our impulses, our actions. We control how we choose to look at the wreckage in front of us. And the rest? The economy, the weather, what other people say behind your back? Epictetus would tell you that's none of your business. It belongs to fate. We spend our lives clawing at things just out of our reach, begging the universe to be fair. It's exhausting. The Stoics looked at this endless struggle and saw madness. They argued that our suffering doesn't come from the unfairness itself. It comes from our demand that the world be fair. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor burdened with power, wrote to himself at night. He reminded himself constantly to separate what was his from what was not. If someone betrays you, that is on them. If you lose your job, that is the system's nature. It hurts, of course it hurts. But Epictetus would ask, where is your power in this? Your power is only in your response. The Stoic path isn't about becoming an unfeeling rock. It's about clarity, a sharp, piercing clarity. When you accept the dichotomy of control, something shifts. A heavy weight lifts off your chest. You stop fighting ghosts. You stop screaming at the rain for getting you wet. You just open an umbrella. Or you stand there and get soaked, knowing the rain is just doing what rain does. Seneca, another heavy hitter in the Stoic lineup, knew about unfairness intimately. He was exiled, brought back, and forced to end his own life. Yet his writings are full of this defiant calm. He analyzed human misery and found the same root cause. We attach our happiness to things outside our control. Fame, wealth, approval. When those things vanish, we shatter. The Stoic analysis tells us to anchor ourselves to the one thing nobody can touch, our character, our own virtue. It's the ultimate act of rebellion against an unfair world. By drawing a line in the sand, this side is mine, that side is the world's. So life takes your money? Fine. It ruins your reputation? Let it. It steals your health? Tragic, but natural. You still hold the reins to your mind. That is the core of their philosophy. A lifeboat in a stormy sea. A quiet revolution happening inside the skull. the world is going to be unfair. It will crush dreams. It will break hearts, but it cannot touch your inner citadel unless you let it. That was the promise Epictetus made to his students. Master this divide, and you master life. Ignore it, and you remain a slave to every shifting breeze. It is a hard truth, but it's a freeing one. They were right. You get sick, people leave, the sky falls in when you least expect it. But the Stoics looked at this wreckage, at this absolute chaos. They didn't just shrug and accept it with a defeated sigh. They demanded something much harder, much more beautiful. Nietzsche later gave it the name Amor Fati, love your fate. Not just tolerate it, not just survive it, love it. It is a terrifying concept if you really look at it, to look at the worst thing that has ever happened to you and say, good, to say, I needed that. It goes against every instinct we have as humans. Emperor Marcus Aurelius sat in his Cold War tent near the Danube, surrounded by plague, surrounded by war and constant betrayal, and he wrote to himself about fire. He observed that a weak flame is easily extinguished by the wind, but a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. Throw in garbage, throw in dead wood, throw in tragedy. The fire consumes it all, and it only grows hotter. That is what Amor Fati demands of the human soul. It is taking the worst day of a life and using it as fuel. Epictetus, born a slave in chains, knew injustice intimately. His leg was crippled by a cruel master. His freedom was a stolen ghost. Yet, he argued that wishing for things to happen as you want them to is the surest path to misery. Instead, wish for them to happen exactly as they do happen, and you will be at peace. It sounds impossible to modern ears, maybe a little insane. How do we love the loss of a job? How do we love a broken heart or the death of a dream? Seneca would say it is the ultimate test. He wrote that disaster is virtue's opportunity. Look at a great wrestler. He needs a fierce, unyielding opponent to show his true strength. Without that opposition, his power is just wasted potential. Fate is that opponent. The unfairness of life is not a punishment. To the Stoic mind, it is training. It is a heavy weight. We lift it, and our spiritual muscles grow. It is a radical, almost violent shift in perspective, moving from the weeping victim asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to the warrior stating, "This is happening for me." Marcus Aurelius viewed obstacles not as roadblocks. They are the road. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So when the world pushes back, when the unfairness feels too heavy to bear, do not resist the current. Embrace the friction. Love the rain that ruins the crops because it washes the soil. Love the pain because it shows exactly where the healing needs to begin. The Stoics did not pray for an easy life. They practiced for the strength to endure a brutally difficult one. And to love every single second of the struggle. Because without the struggle, there is no growth. There is no wisdom. There is just existing. To love your fate is to reclaim your power from a chaotic universe. It is the refusal to be a victim. It is the ultimate freedom. Love your fate. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius about the unpredictability of human life. He said that nothing happens to the wise man against his expectation, not a single thing. He called this practice the premeditation of evils, or Premeditatio Malorum. It sounds incredibly bleak. It sounds like an invitation to anxiety, brooding over the absolute worst things that could possibly happen to you today. But the Stoics viewed this differently. They viewed it as a shield. They saw it as the ultimate form of mercy you could grant to your own soul. Life is going to hit you. It is going to hit you so hard that your teeth rattle. The diagnosis comes back bad. The person you trusted betrays you. You lose your job. It is unfair, deeply, bitterly unfair. Seneca warned that the blow we don't expect is the one that destroys us. The unexpectedness of the blow adds to the weight of the disaster. So what did the Stoics do? They rehearsed the grief before it even arrived. They practiced losing what they loved. Marcus Aurelius did this every single morning inside his tent. He wrote to himself that he would meet ungrateful, arrogant, and deceitful people every day. He wasn't being a cynic. He wasn't hating the world. He was putting on his armor before he walked out into the battlefield of Rome. He was deciding well ahead of time that the cruelty of the world wouldn't penetrate his own character. You see, blind hope can be a very dangerous drug. When we only hope for the best, we leave our flank completely exposed to the harshness of reality, and reality does not care about our hopes. Epictetus was born a slave. He had his leg crippled by a cruel master. He knew unfairness in his very bones. He taught his students that when they kiss their child goodnight, they should whisper to themselves that the child might die tomorrow. That is brutal. It is absolutely gut-wrenching. But look at the profound wisdom underneath that darkness. He was teaching us to love fiercely right now, because nothing is guaranteed, not even the next breath. By facing the absolute worst, the Stoic masters found a strange, beautiful kind of freedom. Fear shrinks when you finally stare it down. You look at the black storm rolling in over the hills. You look at the lightning, and you say, I see you. Suddenly, the monster in the closet is just a shadow on the wall. It's just life unfolding, the way life always unfolds. Seneca observed that fortune falls heavily on those who expect only good things to happen. They are crushed by the shock of it all. But the person who has anticipated the blow, they stand firm. Their roots are deep in the soil, because they already fought the terrible battle inside their own minds. They already made peace with the loss before they even fully possessed the thing. This practice isn't about inviting misery into your home. It's about robbing misery of its greatest weapon, its element of surprise. It's the ultimate act of rebellion against a completely indifferent, unfair universe. You look up at the sky and say, do your worst, I've already lived it. And then, with the terrible fear gone, you can actually start to live. You can enjoy the warmth of the sun on your face today, because you know the winter is coming, and you know you are ready for it. Epictetus had every reason to be bitter, but he was free, freer than the emperors who ruled over him. He figured out something profound. The key to your peace? It is not out there. It is not in the hands of fate. It is very deep inside your own chest. Epictetus taught that we suffer because we confuse what is ours with what is not. Wealth? Not yours. Reputation? Not yours. They are rented. And life is a cruel landlord. It evicts you without notice. So where do you go? Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with the whole world at his feet, knew the outside world was a trap. He wrote about retreating into oneself. He called it the inner citadel, a fortress, unreachable by the chaos of the world. Because the external world is a storm, it will wash away your sandcastles every single time. You chase the promotion. You chase the perfect relationship. You think, if I just get this one thing, I will be safe, I will be happy. But you will not. Seneca warned about this endlessly. He looked at the wealthy men of Rome and saw only misery, rich men terrified of losing their gold. Safe from the outside, but dying on the inside. Seneca argued that a man who depends on external things for his happiness is a hostage to fortune. He is constantly looking over his shoulder, waiting for the hammer to drop. That is no way to live. Real happiness? The Stoics believed it is self-generated. It is a flame you keep lit in a hurricane. You do not need the storm to stop. You just need to tend your own fire. It is hard, really hard, but it is the only way. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that he would meet ungrateful, jealous, and arrogant people. He expected the unfairness. He did not let it penetrate his soul. Your happiness is tied to your character, to your judgments, to the stories you tell yourself about your pain. The world can strip you of everything, your health, your loved ones, your freedom, but it cannot touch your mind. Unless you let it. Epictetus showed us that. You can bound my leg, he said, but not even Zeus can overcome my will. That is the ultimate defiance against an unfair life. To stand in the wreckage, to look at the ruins of your plans, and to smile, not because it does not hurt. It hurts like hell, but you smile because you know you are still standing. The key was always in your pocket. You just forgot to look. So look inward, dig deep. That is where the light is, right there in the dark. There's a word the ancients used, Sympatheia. Marcus Aurelius wrote about it by candlelight, out there on the freezing front lines of a crumbling empire. He didn't see the world as a collection of isolated islands. No, he saw a single breathing organism, everything woven together. You, me, the tyrant, the saint, the stray dog shivering in the rain. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? But it's also terrifying. Because it means the unfairness you feel isn't just happening to you. It's vibrating through the whole web. That's the Stoic view of the universe, Sympatheia. It literally translates to mutual feeling. The early Greeks, guys like Chrysippus, believed a cosmic breath called pneuma bound everything, invisible threads connecting the stars to the dirt beneath your boots. Epictetus pushed this idea hard. He was a slave, remember? He knew unfairness in his bones. Yet he argued that a human being is just a limb of the cosmos. Cut off a hand, and the whole body bleeds. So when life crushes you, when the injustice of it all leaves you gasping for air, the Stoics would say you aren't bleeding alone. The universe feels that fracture. It echoes. But here is where the old Roman thinkers flipped the script. If we are all connected, then your reaction to the unfairness ripples out too. Seneca wrote letters about this to his friend Lucilius. He warned him not to add to the world's bitterness. It's tempting. Oh, it is so tempting to just mirror the cruelty back. Someone betrays you, so you harden your heart. A system fails you, so you become cynical. You want to hurt the world that hurt you. But the Stoic masters believed that just poisons the well we all drink from. It's brutal, this life. Some days, the weight of the injustice is just too heavy. You look around and see good people ground into dust, while the cruel ones feast, and you want to scream. But Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, daily, obsessively, that we are made for cooperation. Like feet, like hands, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. That was his analogy. To act against one another is contrary to nature. So when the unfairness hits, when the world takes what you love, you don't sever the connection. You lean into it. You become the antidote. That's what Sympatheia demands of us. It's not just a comforting idea that we aren't alone. It's a responsibility. Epictetus taught that we must play our part in the cosmic drama, whatever role is assigned. And it's an unscripted, chaotic drama. If your role today is to suffer injustice, you play it with dignity. You don't pass the pain down the line. You absorb it, you transform it. You choose to act with kindness, even when everything around you is cold. Because that kindness, it travels along the exact same threads that the pain does. And in doing so, you heal a tiny corner of this bruised, magnificent universe. Because we are all tied to the same fate, every last one of us. Death. It's the elephant in the room of existence, the ultimate unfairness, right? You build a whole life, you struggle through the mud, you love deeply, and then the lights just go out. It feels like a cruel joke. But the Stoics didn't see it as a tragedy. They saw it as a tool, an anchor to keep them grounded. Memento Mori. Remember you must die. It sounds morbid, heavy, but Seneca, in his writings, treated death like an old, trusted friend who keeps you honest. He argued that we don't actually have a short life. We just waste a massive amount of it. We act like we're immortal. We hold on to bitter grudges against the world. We stress over spilled milk, bad luck, and every little slight. Why? Because we forget the clock is ticking down. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly in his private journal about the great emperors who came before him. Powerful men. Men who literally thought they were living gods. Where are they now? Smoke and ash. Just old stories in dusty books. Marcus used Memento Mori to check his own ego. When life felt violently unfair, when the Senate was plotting against him, when the plagues were raging through Rome, he reminded himself that very soon, he would be nothing but bones. So why be bitter? Why let the inherent unfairness of the world ruin the few precious moments he actually had left? It's a shift in perspective, a radical one. The worst thing that can happen to you isn't losing your money or your social status. It's living a whole life paralyzed by the fear of losing it, and then dying anyway. Epictetus went even further with this idea, brutally far. He said, when you kiss your child goodnight, you should whisper to yourself that they might die tomorrow. Ouch, that hurts to even think about. It rips your heart out of your chest. But Epictetus wasn't trying to make us depressed. He was trying to violently shake us awake, to make us appreciate the absolute miracle of right now, this breath, this unfair, messy, beautiful life. Because it is fleeting, the unfairness of life doesn't sting so much when you realize the whole game is strictly temporary. The rich man dies in his silk sheets. The poor man dies in the streets. The tyrant and the slave. Death is the one true great equalizer. So use it. Let the dark shadow of death make the colors of life burn brighter. When you get passed over for that promotion you deserved, when your health fails for no good reason, when someone you trusted betrays you, pause. Look at the big picture. Will this matter in 100 years? No, it won't even matter in 10. The Stoics knew that death was the only real promise life makes. Everything else is just rented. Your body, your loved ones, your time, it's all on loan. Memento Mori isn't about looking forward to the end of the line. It's about respecting the present. It's taking the unfairness of the world, staring it right in the eye and saying, I don't have time to be angry at you. I just have time to live. And that has to be enough. The ancient Stoics, they looked at this crushing weight and saw the trap. Seneca talked about it constantly. He looked at people drowning in their own heads and noted a tragic truth. He wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. It is a brutal insight. Look at the unfair hands life deals, the betrayal that happened 5 years ago, the rejection that might happen tomorrow. None of that is happening right now, not in this exact second. But people carry it anyway. They drag the dead past into the living present. And they poison the now with a future that doesn't even exist yet. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with the weight of Rome on his back, knew this exhaustion well. His private journals are full of reminders to pull his mind back to the immediate moment. He told himself not to let the panorama of his entire life crush him, just the present. That is the only place we actually live. The Stoics argued that focusing on the present is not just peace, it is a survival tactic. When life is brutally unfair, looking too far ahead breaks you. Looking too far back makes you bitter. So you shrink your world. You make it small. You focus on the breath you are taking right now, the step you are taking right now. Marcus Aurelius believed that the present moment is the only thing a person can be deprived of, because it is the only thing they actually possess. The past? Gone. Untouchable. Unchangeable. And the future? A fog. A ghost. You can't fight a ghost, but you can stand in the now. This is where the Stoics found their power. It is where they faced the chaos of a cruel world. They didn't deny the unfairness of the past. They just refused to let it bleed into the present. And they didn't ignore the dangers of the future. They just knew that worrying about the shipwreck does not steer the boat today. Epictetus, a slave who became a master of his own mind, taught exactly this. He showed that anxiety comes from trying to control what is out of reach. Yesterday is out of reach. Tomorrow is out of reach. Today, right now, that is your only battleground, and it is the only place where life's unfairness can actually be met with dignity. Life does not play fair. It takes the good, it rewards the wicked. The Stoics saw this daily in the blood-soaked dirt of Rome. Yet they found a way to breathe through the injustice. They anchored themselves in the second that was passing. Nothing more. Because if you stack up every unfair thing that has ever happened to you, it will crush you. Nobody is strong enough to carry that. Seneca observed that the mind loves to wander into dark places. It loves to replay the insults, the losses, the moments where the universe seemed to conspire against you. But that is a choice, a painful, self-destructive choice. The Stoic practice is about pulling the leash, hard, snapping the mind back to the quiet of the present. In this exact moment, you are okay. You are breathing. You have a mind that can reason, and that is enough to face the next second. It is all you will ever need. The world doesn't ask permission to put you here. It just drops you in. And right from the very first breath, the scales are tipped. One child gets a silver spoon, a healthy body, and a trust fund. Another gets chronic pain, an empty stomach, and a war zone. It's brutal. It hurts to look at. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose your DNA. But the Stoics, they didn't look away from this. They stared right into the teeth of that cosmic lottery. Epictetus, for example, didn't start with a crown. He was born a slave. His actual name is lost to history. Epictetus just means acquired. He had his leg crippled by a cruel master. He had no rights, no money, no say in his own destiny. Meanwhile, Marcus Aurelius was handed the Roman Empire. Ultimate power, ultimate privilege. Yet, if you read their writings, you see the exact same conclusion. They both recognize that the starting line is completely rigged. Seneca wrote extensively about this force called fortune. He saw fortune not as some fair cosmic judge, but as a blind, chaotic storm. She hands out beauty, wealth, and long life to the foolish and the cruel. She hands out poverty, sickness, and grief to the kind and the virtuous. There is no morality in the distribution of luck. None at all. It's just weather. So what do we do with that? Cry about the unfairness? Scream at the empty sky? The Stoics would say that's just a waste of breath. Seneca taught that everything we have, our bodies, our health, our status, is just on loan from fortune. She can call in the debt at any time without warning. Epictetus put it another way. He taught that we are actors in a play we didn't write. You don't pick your role. You might be cast as a beggar or a cripple or a king. The job isn't to complain about the part you were given. The job is to play the hell out of it, to take that script, however ragged and torn it is, and make it mean something. It's a shift in focus from the things you can't control to the very few things you can. And that's where the hope lives, deep in the ash, because the unfairness doesn't stop at birth. It follows you. You didn't choose the traumas that were handed to you before you even knew how to speak. You didn't choose the chemical imbalances in your brain. But Marcus Aurelius believed that the soul is dyed by the color of its thoughts, not by the conditions of its birth. He ruled the known world, but he was surrounded by plague, betrayal, and war. He knew that you can be imprisoned in a palace, and Epictetus proved you can be free in chains. The Stoics looked at the cosmic unfairness and said, yes, the game is rigged, the board is tilted, the dice are loaded against you, but the way you play your pieces, that is entirely yours. No tyrant, no stroke of bad luck, no twist of DNA can take that away from you. That is the ultimate freedom. It's the realization that while fortune owns the board, you own your mind. It's terrifying, but it's beautiful too. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who saw plagues and war, wrote about this quiet, untouched place, the inner citadel. He believed the mind was a fortress, but it is not a fortress built of stone. It is built of discipline. It is built of fire. You see, the world will take things from you. It will take your health, your money, your loved ones. Seneca, a man exiled and pushed to the very edge, understood this deeply. He said that a man who has never been tested is a tragic figure. A man who has never suffered does not know his own strength. It is brutal. Life is just brutal sometimes. But Seneca saw the unfairness not as a curse. He saw it as a wrestling ring, a place to forge the soul. You get knocked down, you taste the dirt, and you have a choice. Epictetus was born a slave, chained and beaten. He knew more about unfairness than any of us ever will. Yet he is the one who drew the ultimate line in the sand. There are things we control, and there are things we do not. That is it. That is the whole secret. The world can break your body. It can steal your freedom. But Epictetus showed us that no one, not even a tyrant, can touch your mind unless you hand over the keys. They do not teach you this in schools. They tell you to avoid pain. The Stoics tell you to eat it, to chew on the gravel until your teeth get strong. Marcus Aurelius did not pray for a lighter load. He prayed for broader shoulders. To build a resilient mind, you have to stop wishing for things to be easy. That is a trap. Ease makes you soft. Unfairness makes you sharp. It is the sharpening stone for your character. Epictetus would tell you to look at your worst day, your greatest tragedy, and say, good. Not because it doesn't hurt. Of course it hurts. It rips you apart. But it is the only way you find out what you are made of. Resilience isn't something you are born with. It is a scar. It is the tissue growing back thicker after the tear. The Stoics called this the obstacle becoming the way, the fire that consumes everything you throw into it. When life is unfair, it is actually doing you a favor. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in the dead of night about this. He reminded himself that the universe is change, and life is what our thoughts make it. If you think you are a victim, you are. If you think you are a warrior, you are. So you build the walls of your mind, brick by brick. Every setback is mortar. Every betrayal is a stone. You become unbreakable not by avoiding the storm, but by walking right into it. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who had the world at his feet, saw things differently. He looked at change not as a thief, but as the very heartbeat of the universe. He wrote that nature loves nothing so much as to change what is and create something new. It's brutal. The unfairness of it all, the way time strips away youth, love, safety. But the Stoics didn't ask the world to stop spinning. They knew that was a fool's errand. Instead of resisting the tides, Epictetus taught his students to adjust their sails. He argued that it's not the events themselves that crush people, but their rigid judgments about how things should be. So you lose a job, a relationship ends, your health falters. It feels like an attack, a personal vendetta by the cosmos. Seneca called this out as a childish illusion. He pointed out that fortune is fickle, always turning her wheel. Why are you surprised when your turn at the bottom comes around? The Stoic metaphor of the dog tied to the cart is perfect here. We are all tied to a cart driven by fate. If we walk with it, the journey is smooth. If we drag our feet, we just get dragged through the dirt, bloodied and bruised for nothing. The Stoic approach isn't passive surrender. It is active, relentless adaptation. Marcus Aurelius compared a good mind to a roaring fire. Throw a small candle into a storm and it dies. But a raging fire, it consumes whatever you throw into it. It turns obstacles into fuel. That's the secret they left behind in the dust of Rome. Don't just tolerate change, use it. Let the unfairness, the sudden shifts, the cold realities become the material you work with. The grief of loss is real. Epictetus didn't deny that it hurts when a loved one dies or a dream shatters. But he reminded us that we never really owned these things in the first place. We are just borrowing them from the universe. And when the universe asks for them back, the wise man returns them with grace. He doesn't claw at the departing shadows. He turns his eyes to what is left, to what is possible now. When you stop resisting, you stop suffering. Change clears the board. It forces you to play a new game, so play it. There is a strange, quiet freedom in letting go of the old world. You step into the unknown, breathe in the chaos, exhale the resistance. The Stoics understood that the only permanence is in how you choose to respond right now. Everything else is just passing through. We are all just passing through. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, looked at the exact same crushing weight. He ruled the known world, but he saw endless plagues, betrayals, and wars. He wrote something in his private journals that flips the whole world upside down. He said that what stands in the way becomes the way. Let that sink in for a second. The obstacle isn't stopping you. The obstacle is the very road you have to walk. It sounds crazy, delusional almost, but the Stoics weren't about toxic positivity or pretending the pain isn't real. They knew the pain was real. Epictetus, a man born into slavery, a man with a broken leg, understood this better than anyone. He taught that we don't control the world, but we do control the raw material of our own reactions. Every bit of unfairness, every roadblock, it's just fuel.
Think of a fire. A weak fire gets blown out by the wind, but a roaring blaze, the wind just makes it bigger. That's what Seneca believed about human character. He looked at suffering not as a curse, but as a test, an ugly, brutal, necessary test. Gold is tried by fire, brave men by misfortune. That was Seneca's view. If your life is easy, you never get to find out who you really are. It's terrifying. So you lose your job, or your health fails, or someone you love walks away. The old way of thinking says you're a victim. The Stoic analysis says you're a sculptor, and life just handed you a massive, ugly piece of marble. It's unfair. So what? Now you have to chisel it. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask for a peaceful life. He asked for the strength to endure a hard one. The impediment to action advances action. When you start looking at the world through this Stoic lens, the fear starts to fade. A little bit, anyway. The roadblock stops being a dead end. It becomes a chance to practice patience, a chance to practice courage. Epictetus argued that every difficulty is an opportunity to show off our philosophical training, not to other people, but to ourselves. You don't get stronger by lifting feathers. You get stronger by carrying the heavy, unfair burdens life dumps on your shoulders. And it's not a one-time trick. It's a lifelong alchemy. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius about this constant, grinding effort to turn poison into medicine. He analyzed the mindset of a boxer. A boxer doesn't complain about getting hit. A boxer expects it. The blows just teach him how to duck faster next time. That's the Stoic response to life's unfairness. Take the hit. Bleed a little, then use the scar to make your skin tougher. It's a harsh philosophy for a harsh world, but there's a strange, quiet hope in it. Because if the obstacle is the way, then you can never truly be trapped. Even in chains, Epictetus found freedom in his mind. Even in a plague tent, Marcus Aurelius found peace in his duty. They didn't just survive the unfairness, they used it to build something unbreakable. Seneca said something once that cuts right to the bone. He wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about that. We sit in the quiet of our rooms, totally safe for the moment, and we build monsters out of tomorrow's possibilities. The Stoics looked at human nature and saw this tragic, exhausting loop. We borrow grief. We take out massive loans on suffering that hasn't even happened yet, and we pay the interest in anxiety today. It makes no sense. Life is unfair, yes, but Seneca pointed out the pure absurdity of letting that future unfairness ruin the peace of right now. Why suffer twice? Once in the mind, and once in reality if the thing actually comes to pass. And the cruelest part? Half the time, the disaster never even arrives. We spend weeks in agony over a phantom. The Stoics understood that the mind is a brilliant paranoid thing. It tries to protect us by constantly rehearsing the absolute worst-case scenarios. But Marcus Aurelius noted how this traps us. It completely steals the present moment. He reminded himself, and us, to confine ourselves to the present. It's a hard discipline, because the future is a vast, terrifying darkness. It is full of potential injustices, failures, and losses. Epictetus taught that we have zero control over the future. Zero. So pouring our precious emotional energy into what might go wrong, it's just pouring water into a broken jar. It drains us dry, leaves us weak and trembling for when the real trials actually show up. The Stoics weren't saying we shouldn't prepare. Far from it. Seneca advocated for practical foresight, absolutely. Look ahead, make a plan, and then let it go. But there is a massive difference between preparing for a storm and sitting in the sun shivering because it might rain next week. That's the trap, and we all fall into it. The mind spins these heavy narratives of ruin. What if I lose my job? What if they betray me? What if the world just crushes everything I've built? Marcus Aurelius looked at the crushing weight of the future and realized something crucial. No man is ever crushed by the future. He is only ever crushed by the present, and the present is always bearable. It is always something we can handle. If we just strip away the added weight of tomorrow, you can endure this minute. You can endure the next. That's the secret the Stoics left behind for us. Do not carry tomorrow's burdens today. The unfairness of life will come. It will knock on your door eventually. But Epictetus would tell you not to open the door early and invite it in. Keep it outside until it actually arrives. Conserve your strength. You are going to need it. The world is a hard place, and it demands our full presence. When you catch your mind drifting into that dark, imagined future, pull it back. Anchor it in the breath you are taking right now. Remind yourself of Seneca's wisdom. You are suffering in imagination. Step back into reality, because right now, in this exact moment, you are okay. The whispers, the side glances, the crushing weight of what they think of you, it is suffocating. Marcus Aurelius understood this kind of suffocation perfectly. He was the emperor. Rome watched his every move, waiting for him to slip. But he wrote something in his private journals that cuts right through the noise. He noted how strange it is. We all love ourselves more than we love other people, but we care more about their opinion than our own. It makes no sense. We trade our peace for the fleeting approval of people we don't even respect. It is a terrible trade. Epictetus looked at this exact same problem from the gutter. Born a slave, broken body. No status. He taught that someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. Literally, it is outside your circle of control. When you let someone's harsh words ruin your day, Epictetus argued you are handing over the mastery of your mind. You are saying, "Here, take the wheel. Drive me into a ditch." It is pathetic when you really look at it. We just hand over our power. Seneca was brutal about this too. He pointed out that we live our lives for an audience, a fickle, distracted audience. And for what? So they might nod in our direction for 5 seconds? Life is too short to be lived in the shadow of someone else's judgment. People are going to misunderstand you. They will twist your words. They will decide who you are without ever asking you. It is deeply unfair. It hurts. The Stoics didn't deny the hurt. They just asked, what are you going to do about it? You can't control their tongues. You can only control your ears. Aurelius reminded himself every single morning that he would meet ungrateful, jealous, and spiteful people. It was a guarantee, so he prepared his mind. He viewed their malice as a defect in them, not a reflection of him. Think about that. Their insults are just noise, wind blowing through the trees, nothing more. Epictetus pushed this even further. If someone criticizes you, he said you should agree with them. Tell them, if you knew my other faults, you wouldn't have just mentioned these. It is brilliant. It disarms the attacker completely. It steals their power. You see, the Stoics knew that fighting against the unfairness of human opinion is a losing game. You will drown. The only way to win is to stop playing. Stop seeking the validation. Cut the strings. You are not a puppet. Let them talk. Let them think you are a fool, a failure. Let them laugh. Marcus Aurelius stared down the judgment of the entire known world and decided it meant absolutely nothing. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself, your character, your choices. The opinions of others are just smoke. They vanish. Do not let smoke choke out your life. keep walking. Weary, yes. Scarred, perhaps. But free. Free from the chains of their perception. Seneca had a different way of looking at the unfairness of life. He looked at the wreckage of human lives and didn't see tragedy. He saw a testing ground. To him, an easy life was actually a curse. It makes you weak, soft. Think about the Roman gladiators. Seneca used them as a metaphor. A wrestler who has never been bruised, he is untested. He has no real confidence in his own strength because he has never had to use it. And that is exactly how the Stoics viewed life's cruelty, not as some cosmic punishment, just resistance. Epictetus talked about this as if life was a gym for the soul. You lift weights to tear the muscle. It hurts. It has to hurt. Because the damage is where the growth actually happens. So when life hits you with something unfair, something that brings you to your knees, Epictetus would say that is just the heavy weight being added to the bar. You did not ask for it, you did not deserve it, but it is there. Marcus Aurelius took this even further during his darkest campaigns. Surrounded by plague and war, he wrote in his journal, he said that fire turns everything thrown into it into flame and brightness. Everything. A weak fire is put out by a sudden gust of wind. A roaring fire, it consumes the obstacle. It uses the fuel. The obstacle actually becomes the way. It is a beautiful, brutal truth. The Stoics understood that comfort destroys us. We think we want a life without friction. No heartbreaks, no financial ruins, no betrayals. But Seneca warned that without these disasters, we never find out who we really are. We stay strangers to ourselves. The storm exposes the anchor. It reveals the cracks in the foundation so we can fix them. And yes, it is exhausting. Some days the grief or the stress is so thick you can barely breathe. The Stoics didn't deny the pain. They were not made of stone. They just refused to let the pain be useless. Pain with a purpose is entirely different from just pointless suffering. When you get passed over for that job, when someone leaves you, when your body betrays you, that is your moment. Epictetus would look at you right now, in your mess, and ask what you are going to do with it. Are you going to let it crush you, or are you going to use it to forge a spine of steel? The unfairness is the raw material. It is the clay. You are the sculptor, and the pressure is just the chisel doing its work. It is shaping you. We always want the easy way out, but the Stoics knew the easy way leads to nowhere. So next time the world feels relentlessly unfair, remember Seneca. Remember that you are being tested by the fire. It is burning away the deadwood. It hurts like hell, but it is making you unbreakable.